Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the fourth chapter of what would have happened if Naruto were the reincarnation of Asura. I hope you enjoyed the previous chapter, and if not, I invite you to check out my channel. Without further ado, I'll leave you with the story.
Chapter 10 Recovery into the Preliminaries. Previously, greetings, Uchiha Sayuri. I am Indra Otsutsuki. But first, let me get rid of a pest. As the man said so, he went to the main hall, where a huge, glowing purple symbol was stuck to the wall. It was 3 tomos in a circle, a seal of some sort. The man reached into the seal and yanked hard, causing a whitish apparition of Orochimaru to materialize in his hand. Indra uttered, "Begone." A bright glow enveloped the apparition as it disappeared. "I have just removed Orochimaru's soul from the cursed seal, so you are free to use it without any influence or impediment." Her eyes narrowed as she stood up. "Who are you?" The man replied, "Simply put, you are my transmigrant. My father was a great man, the Rakuto Sannin of the legends. When he chose to let my brother Asura become his successor, I was determined to wrangle this power back, for it is my birthright. After I died, my chakra left my mortal vessel and reincarnated into various individuals, including the infamous Uchiha Madara. My brother transmigrated as well, into Senju Hashirama, the Shodai Hokage and Madara's rival. As you can see, both our chakras have reincarnated many times, our feud burning bright and transforming from a clash of ideals to mindless conflict. In this life, I am you, and you I have high hopes for. You must put an end to this feud by ending Asura's life and vanquishing his chakra. You are practically the last of my descendants as the last Uchiha, so I need you to end this once and for all. But who might this Asura be in this life?" Sayuri asked, though she had a feeling she already knew the answer. "A boy by the name of Uzumaki Naruto." Indra observed her reaction closely as she winced. "A boy I see you know and harbor romantic feelings for. I do share thoughts with you, you know." Sayuri took a step back. "I will not kill him. A thing I can do is to avenge your fallen descendants by killing their killer. I shall end my brother." Indra shook his head. "Ah, Uchiha Itachi. My brother's ideals burn strongly within him." Sayuri was puzzled by this, but let the Otsutsuki continue. "He is a powerful foe, perhaps even stronger than Madara. To kill him, you will need a lot more power, the same power that Uzumaki Naruto possess, the power of my father. However, you shall be gifted with yin instead of yang, to hurt instead of heal. Behold, the Rinnegan." Sayuri instantly felt a burning sensation in her left eye. "Since you already have the Mangekyo Sharingan, having the Rinnegan will automatically grant you the eternal variant." The Uchiha was confused. "What eternal variant?" "You see, the Mangekyo does not last forever. The more you use it, the poorer your vision gets until you reach total blindness. To mitigate that, transplanting a Mangekyo Sharingan of someone close to you will give you the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, which will never see the darkness ever again," Indra explained. "Now let me explain what other powers you get from this dojutsu. The Rinnegan are able to see chakra, as well as its flow within the body and at least 8 tenketsu. One who possesses the Rinnegan can master any jutsu as well as all 5 nature transformations with ease. Last of all basic abilities, Rinnegan users are able to create black receivers to which they can transmit their chakra. Now, with the Rinnegan-specific jutsus, first, and most useful, is a Meno Tajikura, heavenly hand power. I won't go into details, but its basic ability allows you to shift, meaning you switch places with anything within 50 meters of your choosing. If done with air, it appears as teleportation, but clearly swapping is much more useful. You can also swap the position of 2 other things without moving yourself, making this jutsu really versatile." The Uchiha nodded. "Secondly, we have Rinbo, Hengoku, Limbo, Border Jail, a technique which allows you to project up to 5 shadows into the invisible world of Limbo. They operate independently, even attacking, defending, or restraining enemies, but they will return to you after 5 minutes, where there is an interval before you can project them again. The shadows are invulnerable to physical attacks except those with Rakuto Senjutsu. Additionally, only sages and Rinnegan wielders can sense and see them respectively. Next is the Rakuto no Jutsu, 6 Paths Jutsu, comprising of Tendo, Deva Path, Shirato, Asura path. Ninjendo, human path. Chikashoto, animal path. Gakido, Preta path. Jigakudo, Naraka path. And the seventh, most powerful and forbidden, Geto outer path. Indra continued. Tendo allows you to manipulate the forces of gravity through 4 jutsus. Shinra Tensei, Almighty Push. Bansho Tenin, Universal Pull. Chibaku Tensei, Planetary Devastation. And Tengai Shinsei, Shattered Heaven. I'll go into details later. Shirato augments your body by granting you mechanical limbs, weaponry, and armor, as well as increased physical strength. 2 main jutsus utilize Shirato: Shura no Ko, Chakra Propulsion Cannon, and Kaiwan no Haya, Arm Cannon. Ninjendo allows you to read anyone's mind by pulling out their soul, resulting in death for him. You can do this through the Kyukan no Jutsu, Soul Absorption Jutsu. Next, Chikashoto lets you summon various animals through a single jutsu, Kuchios. Rinnegan, summoning, Rinnegan. Every summon is immortal and has properties which make them unique, such as heads which multiply when they get cut off, or claws which propel jets of water. Some can even use jutsus. The Preta path is one that you will find yourself using a lot. It enables you to absorb any technique and thus dispel its effects through Fujitsu Kyuin, blocking technique absorption seal, a highly advanced Fuinjutsu. A word of warning, though, you do not want to absorb a sage's techniques, as your body will not be able to handle the natural energy and you will turn to stone. The Jigakudo is the last of the 6 paths and allows you to summon the King of Hell for 2 purposes: interrogation and restoration. It grabs the victim's tongue, and if he tells the truth, he will live, albeit paralyzed. If he lies, he will die. As for restoring, entering the King of Hell's mouth will restore you to full health regardless of your injury, replacing even severed limbs as long as the injury doesn't cause instant death. Even if it does, we have the 7th path. The outer path is the most powerful of the paths, despite not technically being one of the Rakudo no Jutsu. It is the power which transcends life and death, bringing the dead back to life with the Geto, Rinne Tensei no Jutsu, outer path, rebirth jutsu. You can also summon a powerful entity through Kuchios. Geto Mazo, summoning, demonic statue of the outer path, but I wouldn't do it if I were you. That is all, Indra finished explaining. Maiin power, when added to any jutsu, shall immediately amplify its effects 1,000-fold. To use it wisely, Indra added. Lastly, your eyes are indeed unique, as you are the second to awaken the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, the first being Madara. Your Rinnegan, unlike others, possess the 6 paths chakra, so it has 6 tomo on the first 2 ripples. Whenever you overuse the Rinnegan, however, you will lose the tomo for 2 minutes, as well as the EMS, which abilities I will elaborate on now. Indra proceeded to teach her about Amaterasu, Kagetsuchi, Tsukuyami, Kamui, Kodo Amitsukami, and Susanoo. By the time he was done, Sayuri was sure this would surely be enough to take down her brother. What's the catch? I am sure there must be some huge drawback for all this power. With my power, you will have enough to eliminate most foes in your way. The only one that can still stand up to you is my brother's vessel. That is the drawback. You eventually have to kill the one you love so dearly, Indra said. Then forget about it. I will rid this world of evil, avenge your descendants, but I will not vanquish the one I treasure most. You can have your power back, Indra, Sayuri replied decisively. The Otsutsuki shrugged. The power is still yours, and it's completely up to you who you wish to kill. I await your choices in life. When you are ready to train, simply think of me and I shall speak with you once more. As he said so, Sayuri felt a tugging sensation as she was pulled away from her mindscape and back to reality. Indra was left there as he stood there thinking, "Let's play a game, Otudo. I am sick and tired of our conflict and I wish to end this as much as you do. So let's see whose beliefs have more influence. My curse of hatred versus your will of fire. Should Sayuri decide to follow your will of fire, I will lose and will never reincarnate again, and the converse applies. Let this be our final battle." Asura, reality. Sayuri's eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the influx in light. It appeared that they were resting in the bottom of a tree trunk. Yes, it was a huge tree. Sakura's hand was hovering above her wound, surrounding the area with green light. "You're awake," Sakura noted. The Uchiha sat up and noticed Naruto lying beside her. "How's Naruto?" asked Sayuri worriedly. He had definitely gone through a lot in that battle with Orochimaru. "He's fine," the Haruno replied, removing her hand once the wound had closed completely. His advanced healing factor meant that he recuperated quickly from any injuries. However, his chakra is being blocked by some kind of seal. "As for you, you were stabbed from the back till the sword emerged from your ribcage. A very deep wound, but luckily, it missed any vital organs, as I think Orochimaru was not aiming to kill you. I've been trying to heal your wound for the past 4 hours and my chakra has been drained dry. Please take over watch from me. I'll sleep now." Without waiting for a reply, Sakura lay down on her side and closed her eyes, drained unconscious. The Uchiha stood up and exited the hollow. She stretched her arms and legs as she recalled her encounter with Indra. Now it all made sense. Everything about Naruto was put to light. Suddenly, she was hit with a sense of foreboding. "Let's test this out, shall we?" The Uchiha muttered to herself, channeling chakra to her eyes. Her left spun into a regal purple color, with many concentric ripples ringing the pupil. 3 tomos lined each of the first 2 rings. Her right eye bled a vermilion red, before the tomos spun and merged, expanding into an inverse red atom model with a black background. Her visual acuity increased 100 times, and even lines appeared everywhere, judging the motion of objects and their trajectory, including forces and resistance. 3 blue flames appeared in the distance, 20 meters away. Quickly approaching, Sayuri's eyes calculated that they were roughly 4 seconds away. The first shinobi burst out of the line of trees, only for Sayuri to raise her hand. Shinra Tensei, an invisible force, though visible exclusively to her eyes, rippled out from her hand, covering a wide area quickly and pushing back everything in its path. So this was the force of gravity. The man was thrown back and hit a tree. He then got up, hacking blood as his 2 teammates arrived by his side. "Are you Uchiha Sayuri?" the Otonin questioned. Her eyes glowed a brilliant red and majestic purple, indicating that this girl was indeed the one they were looking for. "No shit," his teammate muttered to him while preparing her tools. "Let me guess. Orochimaru's lapdogs," the Uchiha remarked coldly. The third Otonin growled. "Zaku, show her the power of sound." The first Otonin charged at her, shooting out his hands which were wrapped with gauntlets. "Ninpo, Zankaha, ninja art, decapitating airwaves," Zaku shouted, blasting a huge wave of sound at Sayuri. She could, however, see them clearly, so avoiding them was a mere test of agility. "But how can she—" "Oh, I see, it's her eyes," Zaku stated confidently. Sayuri charged at him, engaging him in a vicious, one-sided taijutsu battle. Within 7 seconds, she had his arm in a wrist lock. Tugging hard, she twisted it till it broke and rammed her foot into his face. The kunoichi came at her, so she decided to kick Zaku out of the way. Sayuri sidestepped the first attack. Once the kunoichi landed, she lunged at the Uchiha. The girl ran around Sayuri, seemingly circling her, but in truth, was winding a web of ninja wire around her. Of course, Sayuri had no trouble seeing the extremely thin wires and so knew that it was coming. The girl smirked as she stood up, having fully spun the trap. She flicked her fingers, causing sound to ring from the bells lining the wire. The Uchiha's eyebrow twitched. It was insulting that one would try a genjutsu on an Uchiha. Her right eye glowed a bright red as the illusion cleared instantly. She took a step forward, phasing through the wires. That is, before she disappeared completely. "What? Impossible!" the kunoichi cried. She spun around just as Sayuri materialized behind her in a swirl. Her wrist flicked out to smack the Uchiha. However, Sayuri caught it by the wrist. She glared deep into her eyes, glancing into her soul with the very power of her dojutsu. A flaming red ball orbited around the kunoichi, pulling ever closer before its orbit closed and it crushed her, spilling her guts everywhere. The Uchiha released the girl as soon as she fell unconscious, hitting the floor. Sayuri cast a glance at the remaining shinobi. "Ninpo, Zankakyakua, ninja art, extreme decapitating airwaves," the Otonin exclaimed. A huge wind tore from his hands, blasting straight for Sayuri and the tree where her friends were resting. Indra's words came to her. Fujitsu Kyuin, she called, thrusting out both her hands. A whitish aura surrounded her as the air from the jutsu was sucked and funneled into her body, dispersed with a reverse spin. She noticed him disappearing in a shunshin and knew what was coming before he even reached her. His chakra materialized behind her, pulling him along. The Uchiha ducked anticipatorily, rotating on her heel. Her eyes saw where his hands were about to go and rose to block them. The Uchiha hands flew to his forearms in quick succession, tossing him skyward. Her chikudo was unsheathed and launched at him. It sailed through the air swiftly, piercing the right side of his chest. Once it flew behind him, Sayuri activated her shifting technique. "Ameno to Jikara," she uttered, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Her sword replaced her, stabbed into the ground where she was earlier. She materialized behind him, her hands crackling with fearsome black lightning. "Rakudo Intan, Chidori, 6 paths in style, Chidori," she shouted over the fierce cry of 1,000 birds. With precision, she flew down and struck the man right in his beating heart, tearing a huge chunk of gory flesh out of his body. That sent him to instant death, collapsing before his 2 teammates, who backed away hastily. "Here you can have our scroll," Zaku cried in fear as he dropped his scroll on the floor. Immediately, the Otonin picked up the still unconscious Kunoichi and fled for his life, not even turning back for his dead comrade. Sayuri's eyes faded back to their usual onyxy hue as she discarded the bloody piece of cardiac muscle she had ripped from the Otonin. She walked calmly over to her chikudo and pulled it from the ground before sheathing it. She then picked up the earth scroll and returned to the shade of the huge tree. Naruto was still fast asleep and Sakura was unconscious. She turned on her Rinnegan again. Now, she could clearly see the obstruction in his chakra flow due to some purple chakra. Slowly, however, it was being eaten away by some orange chakra, seemingly mending the damage to his chakra circulatory system. That must have been Asura's chakra. Sakura, on the other hand, had some serious chakra backlash. Her chakra level was life-threateningly low, though it was slowly recovering drop by drop. She would need a soldier pill if she were to think of moving. Sayuri reached into her pouch and withdrew a soldier pill, slipping it into Sakura's mouth. The Haruno's chakra surged suddenly, increasing to half of her natural reserves. Sayuri was impatient, and having 2 teammates who couldn't move would be a pain. The Uchiha needed at least 1 teammate to be fully conscious or they wouldn't make it to the tower alive. She clapped her hands together, invoking a summoning array outside the tree. Purple flames rose from the grass floor as the King of Hell's head emerged. Its mouth opened and 2 appendages shot out, wrapping around the bodies of her teammates. With a tug, it pulled both Naruto and Sakura into its mouth, which shut tight. 5 seconds later, its mouth flew open and her 2 teammates came tumbling out conscious. The 2 stood up slowly, orientating themselves. Naruto looked back and was stunned to see the fierce scowl adorned on the King of Hell's head. Silently, it sank into the ground and vanished with the purple flames. What the hell was that?" asked Naruto. Sayuri was tempted to make a pun but instead pointed to her eyes. "New power. Now's not the time to explain. We'll talk once we get to the tower." She flashed the earth scroll temporarily before taking off. Sakura shrugged and followed suit, as did the blonde Uzumaki. When they neared the center of the forest, Sayuri detected a thin veil of chakra surrounding it. Naruto could sense the disturbance as well, a wide, shimmering curtain of chakra covering the tower. Sayuri brought the Teritsu no into her face. "Kai!" Her chakra flared as her eyes saw through the mirage, causing it to dissipate. Instantly, Naruto felt the oppressive chakra vanish into thin air. Clearly, it had been a genjutsu to weed out those who were about to reach the tower. Though if any team had been strong enough to make it this far, they probably wouldn't be stopped by a mere genjutsu. With the tower now in sight, Team 7 quickly made their way to the base. They circled it once and realized that there was not a single entrance. Of course, Sayuri could simply blow a hole through the wall, but it was designed for entry to every team of genins, of which only a few could blow a hole through the wall. Sakura reasoned, I suppose the only logical solution would be to open both scrolls. After all, the test revolved around obtaining both scrolls, and there weren't any rules forbidding the opening of the scrolls, so Sayuri nodded and withdrew both scrolls, placing them on the floor. She then unfurled both in a cross, revealing a summoning seal array. In a burst of smoke, Irika appeared. He was surprised to see his 3 former students, but greeted them with a smile. I see it's you 3. Congratulations, you're the second team to make it after the Suna team. Now step on to the seal with me, he instructed. Once they did so, he went through a string of hand seals and a bright light consumed them. Together with the scrolls, they reappeared inside the building. I'm sure you all need to have some well-deserved rest. I shall not disturb you guys any further. The bunks are upstairs on the 2nd floor. This is the 1st floor where all the administration takes place, so you can find any instructors here. The 2nd exam ends on Friday. The 3rd exam will be held in the arena on the 3rd floor on Saturday. That's all for now, Johnny, Irika said. Thanks, Irika-sensei, replied Naruto. The Chunin waved before leaving their company. Sayuri suppressed a yawn before stating, It's getting late. I'm turning in now. Naruto merely nodded along but had an uneasy feeling that something was wrong, almost like he had forgotten something. Shirmata, I left Karen behind, the Uzumaki realized. In their rush to leave the place, he had not thought of that. Sakura was confused. Who? Naruto explained to his 2 teammates about his distant relative, whom he had brought with him to the battleground but lost sight of. Sayuri theorized, I didn't sense anyone else in the vicinity after the battle. I don't think Sakura did while she was healing us immediately after the battle either. Orochimaru might have taken her away with him for her power. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Kanayaro, he swore, his fists clenched. His eyes flashed orange for a moment, before he calmed down. I will get that bastard Snake Dash. Calm down, Naruto. We will devise a way to get her back if possible. But right now the best we can do is to rest, stated Sayuri. She's right, Sakura added. Oyasumi, Sayuri said simply before turning to walk upstairs. Sakura followed suit, leaving Naruto to collect his thoughts before he arrived at the same conclusion. Rest was of paramount importance, and thinking about her would only trouble him. 3rd floor, Saturday. It was the 21st of June, the day of the 3rd exam. Naruto could not wait to get home, but it seemed the Sandaime had other plans. They were gathered in the arena on the 3rd floor of the tower, a huge hall consisting of a viewing platform which ringed the perimeter of the walls 5 meters above the floor. At one end of the room was a huge statue of the Sandaime's hands in the Hitsuji seal. The man himself was clad in his regalia, next to all his proctors. Firstly, congratulations to everyone on making it this far. However, since too many teams made it into the 3rd exam, we will be holding a preliminary round, the aged Hokage announced. Many groaned, especially a certain Nara. A coughing Tokubetsu Jonin spoke up. If you don't mind, Hokage-sama, I shall take over the briefing. He turned to the Chunin hopefuls and continued, I am Gecko Hayate, proctor of the 3rd exam. Before we begin the prelims, does anyone wish to leave? At this stage, leaving will not affect your team as a whole, so feel free to do so. Injuries and deaths at this stage are likely, so please take it into consideration. Kabuto raised his hand and spoke. I give up. I still have not healed completely from my injuries. At this, many started to give up. If the 2nd stage was bad, this was worse as it forced confrontation and each candidate was on their own without teammates to help them. After a while, all but 18 contestants were left. Hayate observed the dwindled crowd nonchalantly and asked, Is that all? If so, we shall begin. The remaining people nodded. The proctor pointed to a screen on the wall. Names flashed across it, and when it stopped, the first 2 contestants were decided. Uchiha Sayuri of Konohagakure versus Akato Yoroi of Konohagakure, Hayate announced. The 2 stayed on the arena ground while the rest made their way up to the platform. The rules are simple. When I say start, start. When I declare a winner, the match is to halt immediately regardless of how close you are to killing your opponent, which by the way is discouraged. Failure to observe the rules will result in disqualification. Is that clear? Hayate asked. Both nodded as they sized up their opponent. If there's nothing else, Hajime, the Tokubetsu Jonin declared, jumping back. Yoroi burst into a sprint towards Sayuri, who stood still. Her eyes bled red, with tomos spinning into a warped pattern in her right eye. Her left eye was ringed, turning a deep purple color. She waited calmly as Yoroi lunged at her, observing how chakra was gathered in his right hand. As soon as he landed within her range, Sayuri took a step back and brought up her arms to block the strike. His right hand buzzed with chakra upon coming in contact with her skin, but no visible effect occurred, leading her to the conclusion that it was a passive technique. With her Rinnegan, she noticed how some of her chakra had been siphoned and transferred to him through his hand. So his ability was to absorb chakra. Shinra Tensei, a vicious force, picked up Yoroi and tossed him away, also cracking the floor in a 10-meter radius around her. This match was about to be as one-sided as it could get. Her Rinnegan glowed a bright purple before she disappeared, reintegrating behind Yoroi. With a powerful kick, she launched the Konohinin towards the ground. Before he could hit it, though, an invisible force caught and restrained him. Rinbo, Hengoku, she intoned as she walked towards her shadow, which currently held the man trying to escape. If this is a competition to see who can absorb more chakra, well, let's see how far this can go, Sayuri whispered to the man, who was struggling feebly to break out of the grip of her shadow. Fujitsu Kyuin, a whitish aura in the shape of a bubble wrapped around her. She thrust out a palm towards Yoroi, causing his chakra to start flowing into her at an immeasurable pace. Within seconds, the Konohinin's face began to pale visibly, the effects of chakra loss beginning to show. The blue flame representing his chakra presence diminished rapidly, until a tiny spark was left. It was only then that the Uchiha stopped her jutsu, out of mercy for a fellow shinobi. Her shadow vanished, causing the man to slump and crash onto the floor abruptly. Sayuri didn't even bother waiting before walking away. Shosha, Uchiha Sayuri. Next, Aburame Shino of Konohagakure versus Akimichi Choji of Konohagakure, Hayate announced, before coughing. As both made their way down, medics arrived quickly and carried Yoroi away on a stretcher. Sayuri walked to the platform and contemplated on her performance earlier. Hajime, as both her ex-classmates engaged in the spar, she watched on while her mind was really drifting away. She had purposely chosen not to stand next to her teammates, to prevent any interruption from her thoughts. The Rinnegan, it was certainly a great boost to her arsenal, a powerful tool. However, judging from the match earlier, this power had made her arrogant. Her pride as an Uchiha had made it hard to admit this, but she had overcome the blindness that pride brought to her. Though Yoroi was indeed a weak opponent, this arrogance would only serve to make her underestimate potentially dangerous enemies. That could prove fatal. Thus, she really needed to keep this arrogance in check. Sayuri-chan, why don't you join us? Naruto's voice rang suddenly. She resisted the urge to facepalm. So just because she didn't go to them, he dragged Kakashi and Sakura over instead. Well, she couldn't say it was totally unexpected. Gomen, I had a lot on my mind, Sayuri explained. Kakashi raised an eyebrow, but stayed silent. Shosha, Aburame Shino. Team 7 turned at the sudden announcement, realizing that the match had ended. Choji laid flat on the floor, bugs flying off from his body and returning to the hooded Aburame. As medics carted the obese shinobi away, Hayate continued. Next up, we have Tsurugi Misumi of Konohagakure versus Sabaku no Kankuro of Sunagakure. Hajime. Once the proctor leapt back, Misumi did not hesitate to lunge for the Tsunanin. Said ninja sidestepped the initial pounce and pulled the wrapped package of his back. Sayuri mused, this would be a great opportunity to witness a Kugetsutsukai at work. Let's see how his puppet functions. With that, she activated her dojutsu to observe the match. She gasped, but quickly recovered into a smirk. What an interesting strategy he had. Kankuro set the package down and jumped away, followed closely behind by Misumi. A brief taijutsu clash ensued before Misumi brought him into a stranglehold. A series of cracks and snaps were heard as the Konohinin dislocated his own joints through a jutsu, granting him inhuman flexibility. You have lost. Concede, or I will break your neck, Misumi threatened. Suddenly, Kankuro's mouth opened incredibly wide, before closing. This occurred repeatedly, creating a haunting clacking sound which sounded like maniacal laughter. The wrapped package burst, revealing the real Kankuro. "We'll see about that." He gestured his hands rapidly, his fingers swinging dexterously while manipulating thin threads of chakra attached to the Kankuro in Misumi's clutches. Kankuro broke into multiple sections, breaking out of his grip and revealing whirring machinery and gears within. So this is what a puppet looks like, Naruto thought, recalling the time Kankuro almost used Karasu on the streets. The Tsunade smirked before closing his fingers. The puppet reassembled, trapping Misumi within its wooden and metallic body. "Now I'll break your bones, since you seem to like dislocating them so much." With that, he closed his fist. The chakra threads collapsed, bringing the puppet together with sickening snaps. The proctor paused for a few seconds, till he determined there was no longer any movement from the puppet's insides. "Shosha, Sabaku no Kankuro." The Tsunade smirked before gesturing his fingers, causing the puppet to snap open and return to his side. The crumpled form of Misumi fell to the floor and medics began to carry him away. The screen on the wall flashed with names once again, and stopped at the next two names. Haruno Sakura of Kanahagakure versus Yamanaka Ino of Kanahagakure. The two girls were shocked as they realized who their opponent was. Their faces turned into looks of determination upon realizing that this was their chance to prove once and for all who was better. Both kunoichis stared at each other intently once they reached the arena floor. Heiei looked at the two of them before announcing, "Hajime!" The two launched themselves at each other, engaging in a taijutsu brawl. Naruto raised an eyebrow as he observed his ex-classmates fight. Clearly, taijutsu was neither of their fortes, yet they still chose to do it. Ino had the upper hand in ninjutsu due to her clan, that was for sure. Sakura only knew medical ninjutsu, and that would doom her if she couldn't end this match quickly. Ino gripped Sakura's arm and tossed her to the floor, where she recovered and flipped over the Yamanaka while firing off multiple projectiles. The blonde girl dodged them, catching the last one and sending it back to Sakura. The Haruno barely avoided it, getting a scrape on her arm. Sakura brought her other arm over the wound, and her palm glowed green as it closed. Everyone above was marveled as it was rare to see medical ninjutsu employed in a match. The Haruno re-entered the battle, and the two childhood friends continued to fight on roughly equal ground. To be honest, it was not a very eventful match. There was, however, only one exciting instance where Ino used her clan's Shintenshin no Jutsu on Sakura. Surprisingly, she managed to break out of it. Eventually, the two kunoichi had tired each other out and went for a final punch which knocked out both of them simultaneously. The proctor looked at the two still bodies before sighing. "As both contestants are unable to continue by double knockout, I consider this a draw." The fifth match, Tenten of Kanahagakure versus Sabaku no Temari of Tsunade. Hajime. This time, the match was much more eventful. Tenten's mastery of Bukijutsu was astounding. Unfortunately, she was matched with the wrong opponent. As Naruto and Sayuri had guessed, the Tenzin on Temari's back was used to execute wind techniques, which easily countered any of the weapon specialist techniques. This advantage led to the Tsunade's victory, as she ended the match with a powerful futon jutsu. Naruto winced as Tenten plunged from midair and hit the floor, her arms covered with numerous lacerations. Shosha, Sabaku no Temari. Next, we have Nara Shikamaru of Kanahagakure versus Tsuchikin of Otogakure. The lazy Nara groaned at having to move his ass, especially to fight a girl. On the other hand, said opponent was rather excited and ready to fight. Those who knew Shikamaru well were aware that he already had 100 plans swirling in his mind, waiting for the right combination to set one off even as he strolled down the stairs. When he finally got to the floor, Heiei announced, "Hajime!" The Nara observed his opponent lazily as she charged at him. At the last possible moment, he dodged to the side. She spun around and began a barrage of punches and kicks which he countered one by one. Finally, she managed to get one past his guard and launched a kick to his stomach, throwing him back. Shikamaru rolled to a stop and got up, just in time to see her flick several senbons at him. Without much effort, The Nara evaded the airborne needles, which surrounded him with ninja wire once they planted themselves into the wall and floor. Attached to these wires were small, miniature bells. The Nara raised an eyebrow as he watched his opponent form a hand sign. Suddenly, the bells began to ring, emitting a sound reminiscent of a wind chime. Shikamaru's vision blurred and he started seeing double. This left him unable to see the coming attacks. Multiple senbons pierced his body, causing him to fall to one knee as he was transformed into a pincushion. The attacks stopped as Kin taunted. "Is this the best you can do, Nara? I've heard of the famed Kagemain no Jutsu, Shadow Possession Jutsu. Where is it now?" Shikamaru paused, before raising his head slowly. Plastered on his face was a smirk. "You asked for it." All of a sudden, Kin was paralyzed and unable to move. But how? She was sure that she was out of range of his clan's technique, and given that he was only a genin, being 15 meters away should have been sufficient. The details came to her and she groaned internally as realization hit her. The shadows of the wires linking her to the senbon around him were jet black, infused with Inton chakra by Shikamaru. So he had apparently used the natural shadows of the wires between him and her to extend the range of his technique. She wanted to snarl, but she couldn't, so she settled for scowling at him. The Nara said simply, "I, Kintsuchi." She found herself forced to repeat after him. "Forfeit this match." Once the last 3 words left her mouth, the proctor nodded in acknowledgement of the declaration. "Shosha, Nara Shikamaru." The spectators applauded, especially those from Konoha. Their compatriot's strategy was brilliant, as expected of the son of the Nara clan head. Hayate looked at the screen as it flashed again, flickering through the remaining 8 names. 7th match, Uzumaki Naruto of Konohagakure vs. Inazuka Kiba of Konohagakure. The 2 former classmates and rivals looked up at each other, smiling as they descended the stairs to the arena. As they faced each other, Naruto voiced out, "Give me your best shot, Kiba." The Inazuka smirked, replying, "I will." "You too, Naruto." The Ninken by his side yapped in agreement. Sayuri watched with little concern. Given Naruto's powers, he would be able to triumph over Kiba within seconds. At the same time, she knew that his honor and his love for friends would make him not use his inheritance, for he was aware of its vast power. The Uchiha side, Naruto, her heart ached once more at the thought of him. Naruto's hand went to the back of his cloak, returning to the front of his body after detaching the celestial cloud-gathering sword and its sheath from his belt. Holding the sheathed sword in his left hand, Naruto brought his right hand to his chest and formed the seal of confrontation. The Uzumaki smiled gently. Kiba respectfully mirrored his friend, grinning as well. Hayate eyed the 2 and announced, "Hajime." Chapter 11, Training with the Sages. Previously, Hajime. The 2 opponents flew towards each other, with Naruto closing the gap first due to his immense speed. They exchanged blows rapidly, and the Uzumaki was fighting his opponent with only a single hand as his other hand was still on the sheathed elucidator. Naruto went for a low kick, which Kiba countered by pushing his foot away. Naruto executed a front flip, stretching out his leg in an axe kick. Kiba gasped when he saw the speed at which it was coming and took 2 steps back. Naruto's foot missed the Inazuka narrowly and smashed into the arena floor, the impact causing the tiles to shatter into smithereens. The Uzumaki capitalized on the stunned Kiba and tossed his sword upwards before lunging at him with a palm thrust. Luckily for Kiba, his hands raised in time to intercept the thrust. However, the strength behind it was far too great and launched the Inazuka into the arena wall 10 meters away. It was at this moment that Akamaru jumped at him with a feral snarl to protect his master. With both hands, Naruto caught his sword by the handle and swung it in a wide arc such that the sheath disengaged from the blade. The adamantine sheath plowed into the small white Ninken, its weight throwing the dog off his trajectory. Kiba got up with a kunai in hand and began an assault on Naruto. The Uzumaki fended off the Inazuka's strikes easily, deftly parrying any swipe or slash from him. Suddenly, Kiba leapt back and landed on all 4s. He shouted, "Giju Ninpo, Shikyaku no Jutsu, Beast Mimicry Ninja Art, all 4s Jutsu." With incredible unprecedented speed, Kiba lunged at Naruto, knocking his sword out his hand and landing on him. Kiba raised a fist and struck the Uzumaki with great force, causing him to disperse into smoke. Surprised, he looked up just in time to see the real Naruto land a strike to his stomach. The Uzumaki whispered "Gomen" before sweeping his legs from under him. The Inuzuka landed on the floor, after which Naruto gave him a kick and raised his hand skyward. Chakra amassed quickly in his right hand, his forearm glowing orange. He plunged his fist to the right of Kiba's head, causing the surrounding ground to explode in a show of potent chakra. The Inuzuka surrendered hastily. "Proctor, I forfeit this match." Heiei nodded in acknowledgement as Naruto smiled, his outstretched right arm dimming while he formed the seal of reconciliation with Kiba. Gripping the Inuzuka's hand, he then pulled him up to a standing position. "You did a good job, Kiba. Your Shikyaku was impressive." The Inuzuka laughed, exclaiming, "You did even better than me. That chakra fist was sick." Naruto smirked in amusement, not bothering to hear as the proctor announced his victory. To the mirth of the spectators, the two combatants retrieved their respective companions and equipment before ascending the stairs together, sharing a conversation. Heiei smiled. This was what it meant to be a shinobi, a brother-in-arm. His attention returned to the flashing screen which dictated the next two opponents. The 8th match, Hyuga Hinata of Konohagakure versus Hyuga Niji of Konohagakure. Hinata, the shy Byakugan princess, gasped and was taken aback by the matchup. She was fearful of her cousin, who was giving her a cold stare. As both met on the arena floor, Niji started by saying, "Hinata-sama, this is your chance to give up and forfeit, for you are a weakling. Fate has already declared me the winner of this match. I promise you, I will not hesitate to end your life." Naruto scowled from the spectator platform as he stood next to Sayuri. What the heck is he saying? Isn't she his own cousin? His own flesh and blood? Sayuri sighed but kept quiet, opting to activate her Sharingan to observe their movements. This match would be interesting to watch given the Hyuga clan's prominent taijutsu style, the Juken. It was the most reputable and fearsome taijutsu style in all of Konoha due to its ability to inflict severe internal trauma with minimal external force, as well as the manipulation of an opponent's chakra pathway system. Hinata glanced at Naruto, before looking back to her cousin with a determined expression. "Nijin-zen, I will not give up, for that is my ninja way. I will not lose to you." She adjusted into the Juken's most basic stance. Niji narrowed his eyes. "Very well then. You'll soon realize. A person who is born weak cannot change his fate." "Hajime," the proctor announced. "Byakugan," both Hyuga members called. The veins at the side of their eyes bulged as their clan's Kekkei Genkai activated, all-seeing white eyes which penetrated anything and everything. Immediately, both closed the gap between them and engaged in a high-speed taijutsu match. Chakra flew all around them due to their ability to release chakra from their tenketsu, chakra points, nodes along the chakra pathway system from which chakra can be released. Blows were exchanged, most deflected or parried. Niji weaved in and out of Hinata's attacks easily, showing himself to be the superior fighter of the two. For a moment, Hinata shot out with a palm thrust. However, her cousin sidestepped and caught it with his left hand, using his right to strike her outstretched arm. She winced visibly in pain as one of her chakra points were shut down, disrupting the flow of chakra there. His right hand switched quickly from a two-finger jab to a straight hand, which he used to chop her in the neck swiftly. Within the next few seconds, his right hand flew to her chest, jabbing and sending chakra to her heart. Then he flattened his hand into a thrust, creating an explosion of chakra which sent the Hyuga heiress flying back. Hinata crashed onto the floor, and blood began to drip profusely from her mouth. Sayuri narrowed her eyes as they transitioned to their most powerful form, giving her the insight that Niji had used chakra to damage her heart and the surrounding vital organs. The Byakugan princess breath became short and fast as she began to find breathing difficult. Niji tilted his head and said, "Didn't I warn you to expect death for defying fate, Hinata-sama?" Despite her poor condition, Hinata coughed out, "Ena no, Niji-zen, I will ena never give up." Slowly, she began to stand. Niji's eyes twitched in anger. How dare you defy fate? A weakling will always be a weakling. At this, Naruto's grip on the steel railings tightened in rage. Niji took a step forward and lunged towards Hinata, intending to kill her. Suddenly, he found himself restrained by 4 jonins. In a blur of speed, he also saw Naruto appear standing in a protective stance in front of the vulnerable heiress. His irises were orange, with a single horizontal bar and a slit over it in a black cross shape in each. That chakra, so powerful. Is his blood worthy, mother? Thought the psychotic Jinchuriki to himself. A deep voice replied, yes indeed. But this one, he is different. Watch him but do not fight him. Yes, mother? Naruto glared at Niji angrily, having detected his intent to kill the Hyuga heiress through his ability to sense negative emotions. Niji, I could see that murderous rage in your eyes, and could feel your intent to kill your own cousin. How could you do this to Hinata, your own flesh and blood? Naruto shouted angrily. Niji struggled against his restraints, angered by the blonde before him. Is this the special treatment the main house gets? TSK, looks like fate really is a cruel, unchanging master. No, Niji. She tried so hard to fight you, and didn't give up even when her lungs were failing her. Why would you do something so despicable as to murder your own kin? Especially for something as stupid as resisting her fate. Niji shook his head. Scum, you are also a failure. You'll never understand. Your fate sticks with you till your very death. Changing it is futile. Naruto scowled at him, as did the proctor and rest of the jonins. You've clearly won, and there was no need for more violence. Heiate spat, before declaring in disgust, Shosha, Hyuga Niji. Niji finally gave up struggling, and the jonins let him go after the medics carried Hinata away. Hyuga Niji, I will defeat you at the finals and show you that hard work beats talent, vowed Naruto, who then returned to his spot in the stands. Meanwhile, Sayuri's hand pushed her half-drawn chikudo back into its sheath, no longer seeing the need to intervene. Her vermilion eyes returned to inky black pools. The board resumed flashing with names, though everyone already knew who would be the last 2 fighters as they were the only ones left. Final match of the preliminaries. Rock Lee of Kanehagakure versus Sabaku no Gaara of Tsunade. The redhead grinned demonically as he made his way down to the arena floor, a stark contrast to the overexcited Lee who had been waiting enthusiastically for his turn. Hajime, I'm Rock Lee, and I am most excited to fight you. Gaara-san, the Konohinin declared. The redhead murmured, entertain me. At once, the taijutsu specialist took off towards Gaara, spinning in a roundhouse kick. Konoha Senpu, Leaf Hurricane, Lee exclaimed. Sand shot up in response, blocking the kick from connecting. The Konohinin then tried repeatedly to land a punch or kick on Gaara, but it was to no avail as the sand automatically came to his defense. For the next 10 minutes, Lee unsuccessfully attempted to get past the Tsunade's guard. Finally, the redhead spoke. Is that all you got? I was expecting more. There isn't enough blood yet. With a wave of his hand, sand gushed out of his gourd, rushing towards Lee. The Konohinin backflipped out of the way, jumping out of reach of the sand. He then landed on the top of the Sandaime statue in the arena, looking to his sensei, taijutsu expert Guy. Guy sensei, may I dash? Guy waved him off, replying, no need to ask. Go for it, Lee. Lee nodded and reached for his orange leg warmers, before withdrawing a set of weights from each one. Holding both sets up, he then let go. The 2 weights crashed onto the floor with a loud boom, leading every spectator to stare in amazement. Kakashi looked at Guy and sweat dropped. Don't you think that's a little too much, Guy? The taijutsu specialist shook his head, responding with, no, my youthful rival. You must understand that like me, Lee is unable to use ninjutsu or jinjutsu and can only rely on taijutsu. So, in order to progress to Chunin level, his taijutsu must be of higher standards than the average Chunin. Kakashi shook his head in amusement, his eyes returning to the fight. Now, Lee took off with great speed towards Gaara, becoming a blur. He blitzed the Tsunade, going faster than the sand could keep up with its defense. Finally, Lee threw a right hook, sending Gaara flying. The redhead growled as he got up, revealing cracks across his face. Much to everyone's shock, pieces of his face began to turn brown and fall off, revealing his true skin underneath. Sayuri narrowed her eyes. An armor made of sand? She could already tell since from the start of the battle. He was coated from head to toe with chakra. Naruto, on the other hand, was more concerned with the spike in the amount of bloodlust and malevolent chakra he detected. Lee narrowed his eyes. Given his opponent's defense, he would require a more powerful technique. He crossed his hands in front of him and looked down, closing his eyes and focusing on overloading and opening the first gate. Kaimon, gate of opening. Kai! Naruto looked to Kakashi for an explanation on what was going on. Sayuri, on the other hand, could observe it with her own eyes. The Hashiman, 8 gates, are 8 specific tenketsu on a person's chakra pathway system which limit the overall flow of chakra within a person's body. The basis for the idea of the chakra gates comes from the body's limits on the functions within it. This makes the body much weaker, but it keeps the body from expiring too soon. By undergoing intense training, one can learn how to open these gates, allowing the user to surpass their own physical limits at the cost of extreme damage to their own body. Due to the immense amount of chakra flooding the body all at once, drastic changes can occur upon the user's body. The most common of these changes are the changes to skin color, eruption of veins around the temples, and the eyes turning completely white, explained Kakashi. Guy continued, the 8 gates are, in order, the Kaimon, Kumon, Gate of Healing, Simon, Gate of Life, Shaman, Gate of Pain, Taman, Gate of Closing, Kaimon, Gate of Joy, Kaiman, Gate of Wonder, Shimon, Gate of Death. Opening all 8 gates will result in power surpassing the Kages, at the cost of death. Naruto nodded. I see, Kakashi-sensei, Gai-sensei. Thank you. Lee sprinted towards Gaara and prepared his forbidden technique. With blinding speed, the Konohinin breached the redhead's barrier and executed a swift mule kick, tossing the redhead skyward. Lee repeatedly kicked the Jinchuriki up, putting great strain on his own body as he did so. He winced in pain as both he and his target finally reached the ceiling. Lee appeared behind Gaara in a flash of speed, screaming, Kagebayo, Shadow of the Dancing Leaf. His body mimicked the redhead's exactly as rolls of bandages around his forearms unraveled, swirling around Gaara and binding him. The pair dived headfirst towards the ground and spun rapidly. Omote Renge, Primary Lotus. Just before they hit the concrete, the Konohinin rapidly detached himself and flipped out of the way. The redhead wrapped in bandages crashed into the hard floor, causing the tiles to explode. As the bandages fell away, they revealed an empty shell of sand that was falling apart. Lee thought, so that wasn't the real Gaara? When did he? Kyuso, when I winced earlier, he must have substituted then. From behind, he heard the sound of sand rushing towards him. He flipped far away, before landing out of reach of the sand. Gaara looked at him with intimidating, bloodthirsty eyes. Mother wants your blood. Ryusa Bakuryu, sand tsunami. The floor erupted with sand, rising to a huge wave headed towards Lee. The taijutsu specialist closed his eyes, before reaching a quick decision. Kumon Kai. Simon, Kai. Shaman, Kai. The sand that was about to reach was thrown back by a massive blast wave of chakra exuded from Lee, whose body was shrouded in a greenish vapor. The Konohinin's face was red from the increased blood flow. He stared at Gaara, shouting, "The lotus of the leaf blooms twice." Before anyone could decipher the cryptic meaning behind his sentence, Lee disappeared in a burst of speed. Suddenly, a loud boom resounded in the arena as Lee launched a kick to Gaara's chin with enough force to send him high into the air. Then, once again, he disappeared and reappeared around the redhead, contacting him with blows each time he crossed the Tsunade. Finally, he wrapped Gaara in bandages and pulled the redhead towards him. With great power and speed, Lee performed a kick and a punch at the same time. "You're a Renge, Hidden Lotus," exclaimed Lee. As Gaara was launched towards the ground, the gourd on his back dissolved into sand, cushioning his fall. Nonetheless, the impact left him smarting with intense pain. Lee was in as much pain as Gaara was due to the drawback of the 8 gates. He collapsed to the floor in incredible agony, rendering him immobile. Gaara's head tilted to look at his opponent as both lay on the floor. He raised his right hand, gesturing it towards Lee. Sabaku Q, sand coffin. Sand flew towards the Konohinin, intending to bind him within its clutches. Guy decided to take action. In a flash, he appeared in front of Lee and knocked away the sand. Gaara looked at Guy, silently demanding an explanation for his behavior. "Why do you protect him so?" Guy replied firmly, "Because Lee is my student. He is precious to me." Gaara's eyes widened. "Precious?" Then he responded as he stood up. "Forget it." He began to walk away as the proctor announced, "As Rock Lee of Kanagakur is unable to continue, the winner is Sabaku no Gaara of Sungakure." As medics brought Lee away, Hey 8 continued, "This concludes the preliminaries of the third stage of the Chunin exams. All victors, please report here now." The 8 victors stepped forward. They were asked to write their names on pieces of paper, which were then balloted to decide the matchups for the finals. First match, Hyuga Niji versus Uzumaki Naruto. Second match, Sabaku no Kankuro versus Aburame Shino. Third match, Sabaku no Temari versus Nara Shikamaru. Fourth match, Uchiha Suri versus Sabaku no Gaara. The victor from match 1 will fight that of match 2, and the same for matches 3 and 4. The victors of matches 5 and 6 will then engage in match 7, the final match determining a final winner for the Chunin exams. The finals will be held in about 3 weeks' time on Saturday, the 12th of July. The Kazekage will be present, as well as dignitaries from other lands and villages. So do exhibit your village's prowess. Good luck training, and see you in 3 weeks' time. You are dismissed. The various teams left the tower to return their usual business. Sakura left for home, while Sayuri went to train with Kakashi. It had been 6 days since Naruto had went home, and he was eager to take a hot bath. Kurama remarked, "Kit, why not head to the Konoha hot springs?" The blonde nodded mentally. "That's a good idea. Thanks, Kurama-san." The fox grunted, refusing to vocalize a reply. Was he actually getting warm and cuddly with his Jinchuriki for the first time in shinobi history? Asura smiled and patted the giant fox on his paw gently. The Otsutsuki laughed as the Kyuubi glared at him. Konoha Hot Springs. Naruto strode towards the traditional bathhouse, before noting something odd. There was a male chakra signature near a whole lot of females. This wasn't a mixed bath. The blonde's eyebrows twitched as he noticed a man perched on a tall tree growing next to the female side of the onsen. He was a middle-aged man, looking around 50 years of age. He had long and spiky white hair, and donned a short green kimono shirt and pants with a red haori over it. The most distinct features were the red lines running down his eyes, his headband with the kanji 4 oil, as well as the huge scroll on his back. In his hand was a small binoculars which was clearly aimed at the unsuspecting girls below. Kono hentai. Naruto swore under his breath. Based on his sensory prowess, however, he could tell that this man was powerful, perhaps on the level of Kakashi-sensei or beyond. As such, he snuck up the tree as stealthily as possible. Surprisingly, he actually made it behind the man without being noticed, probably because the man was engrossed with his voyeurism. With a kick to the ass, Naruto launched the man sailing straight through the roof of the bathhouse, resulting in said man crashing into the onsen where the ladies were bathing. Deafening screams ensued before sounds of severe beatings were heard as feminine justice was exacted. The blonde smirked when the bruised man walked towards him, scowling. "That'll teach you to spy on women, pervert," said Naruto. The man raised an eyebrow before replying, "I'm not a pervert." Then he jumped, clapping his geta, wooden sandals, together and landed in a dramatic kabuki pose. "I'm a super pervert without equal," the man proclaimed with glee. "I am Jiraiya of the Sannin, Gama Sannin of Konoha." Naruto resisted the urge to facepalm. "This is Jiraiya?" he thought. Well, at least that explains his chakra. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes at the blonde, muttering, "You look familiar." Suddenly, his eyes went comically wide as he recognized the origin of the resemblance. "Are you Uzumaki Naruto?" Naruto nodded, curious as to how the Toad Sage knew. Jiraiya continued, "Sarutobi-sensei has told me much about you, and he told me when I came back yesterday to train you personally for the Chunin exam finals. So quickly? But I just ended the preliminaries. How would Hokage know that I would pass? Wait. Unless he already had faith that I would pass. Naruto thought. The blonde then smiled. Despite him not wanting to be under the tutelage of such a pervert, he decided to do so since the Sandaime had wished for it. Alright then, let's begin. But do you know anything about my current abilities? Jiraiya shook his head, replying, Sarutobi-sensei said that you would tell me yourself and that it would be very interesting. Given that the Hokage trusted this man, Naruto chose to do so as well. They went to a secluded training ground where he explained all his abilities, from the 6 paths down to his kenjutsu. That's a very interesting skill set. First, I would like you to sign the Toad Summoning Contract. As the name suggests, doing so will allow you to summon the legendary toads of Myobokuzen, Mount Myoboku, to aid you in combat, and you will also learn to become a proper sage by mastering the manipulation of natural energy. Given your current situation with the 6 paths sage mode, you have not fully explored the potential of Senjutsu yet, so that's what we'll be doing for the first week. In the second week, we'll be working on expanding your ninjutsu arsenal, and on the third week, taijutsu will be the focus. All of your training will be completed on Myobokuzen, where time passes more quickly. A week here is a month there. Any questions? Naruto shook his head, but noted that he would miss his teammates and for some reason, especially so for Sayuri. Perhaps because the time to the finals was drawing near and once she got promoted to a Chunin. He tried to ignore the thought and instead paid attention to what Jiraiya was doing. The Toad Sage swiped his thumb across his canine, drawing blood. He then flashed through a series of hand seals before slamming his right hand down onto the grass. As he proclaimed, Kuchios no Jutsu, Summoning Jutsu. An array of Jutsushiki spread out from the point of impact. Summoning smoke filled the area as a giant orange toad emerged. Gamma, may I have the contract, please? Jiraiya requested. The toad opened its mouth, withdrawing a scroll with its tongue and laying it down on the floor. Ignoring the fact that the scroll came from the toad's mouth, the Toad Sage rolled it open to reveal vertical columns to write names in, of which only 5 were filled so far. Naruto was awed when he saw the Yandaime's name on the latest column. His idol was a toad summoner? Heck yeah. The blonde was excited and asked, So what do I do? Jiraiya smirked in amusement and responded, Draw some blood and write your name with it, then imprint all your fingerprints on the hand you would like to use the summoning technique with. Naruto did as told, though he had trouble drawing blood as the wound he made always closed quickly. He could foresee having to bite off a phalanx to draw sufficient blood before it grew back. Now, the size of your summon depends on how much chakra you put into the jutsu. Go ahead and try. The hand seals are boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram, Jiraiya urged. Naruto decided to start small and drew on a small drop of his humongous reserves. Kuchios no Jutsu. A small puff of smoke went into the air, revealing a young orange toad with purple markings around his eyes, mouth, and stomach. Hey! The toad spoke, looking around to see who summoned him. You must be our new summoner. I'm Gamakichi, son of Gamabunta, the boss summon. The blonde Uzumaki smiled brightly at Gamakichi and said, I'm Uzumaki Naruto. Nice to meet you. Sorry for disturbing you. I only summoned you to test out the jutsu. Here's a treat. Naruto grabbed a sweet from his pocket and handed it to Gamakichi, who popped it in his mouth. I'm starting to like you already, Naruto-san. I'd like to be your personal summon. What do you think? The Uzumaki agreed. Sure. Just no formalities, please. Then the same, Naruto-kun, you can call me Kichi. See you. The toad disappeared in a plume of smoke. The corners of Gamma's mouth curled upwards at witnessing the new summoner's warmth and kindness towards his summons. Seeing his job done, he took back the scroll and dispelled as well. Naruto, you'll need a lot more chakra to summon the chief toad. Try again, Jiraiya stated. Naruto nodded and channeled an amount of chakra 100 times the previous attempts. Kuchios no Jutsu, the Uzumaki yelled, invoking a large haze of chakra-laced smoke to billow. When it cleared, a giant toad even bigger than Gamma materialized. He was the color of rust with bright red markings around his eyes, on his lips and on his chest. There was a scar over his left eye, and he also donned a blue happy vest. He carried massive dosu blade at his hip and a large kizaru pipe in his mouth which emitted smoke. The chakra that summoned me wasn't Jiraiya's, the toad remarked. Jiraiya replied hastily, Bunta, the newest summoner, Uzumaki Naruto was the one who summoned you. Gamabunta turned to face the blonde in question. Naruto gave a smile in response. It's an honor to meet you, Gamabunta-sama. The Uzumaki greeted respectfully. The chief toad took a puff from his pipe as he observed the boy carefully. Uzumaki? Huh? I've not heard that in quite a while. Jiraiya knew what was on the boss summon's mind and silently signaled him to keep it a secret. Gamabunta complied and said, Naruto, in order for me to approve you as our new summoner, you must stay on my back for the next 2 hours. 2 seconds later, the chief toad found the Uzumaki on his back. As fast as his father, thought the boss summon as he started to leap around the training ground in an attempt to throw the toad's latest summoner off his back. 2 hours later, Gamabunta panted hard, doing his last leap before deciding to halt. A triumphant Naruto stood on his back. Fine, I accept you as our new summoner. Do not summon me unless you have a battle to fight or sake to drink. Naruto jumped off the chief toad's back and responded, As you wish, Gamabunta-sama. You can cut the formalities. I'll be off now. Jiraiya started. Actually, he explained his idea of Naruto's training plan to Bunta, who agreed. I'll dispel back to Myobokuzan and use the Gyakukuchios no Jutsu, reverse summoning jutsu, to bring y'all there. See you. Minutes later, the 2 toad summoners were brought to the mystical sage region. Naruto was introduced to the Nida Zengama, 2 great sage toads, Shima and her husband Fukasaku. The blonde also met the Agama Sennin, great toad sage, Gamamaru, the oldest and most respected toad of all the inhabitants of Mount Myaboku. Yajin no Ko, child of the prophecy. Gamamaru greeted. Jiraiya flinched. Gamamaru-sama, are you sure he's the one? I can feel it. One of the children is here. Naruto looked at Jiraiya for an explanation. The great prophecy states that 2 children with immense power will hold the fate of the whole world in their hands, becoming either its savior or its destroyer. One of them is destined to be a student of mine. Asura-kun, the ancient toad sage croaked. Are you there? Naruto suddenly felt an odd surge in his body, like something was possessing it. His movements were not his own. Neither was it his voice when he spoke. Hi, Agama Sennin-sama. Naruto-kun is my transmigrant. The toad sage nodded slowly and took a long pause before saying to Jiraiya, Proceed with training as soon as possible. I'm sure that he's one of them, the savior. I'm more afraid of the other one. The great toad sage spoke, the other one, like a curse word, making Naruto shudder as he could infer who he was talking about. Indra, Naruto guessed, finding his voice return to him. Indeed, the great toad sage responded before falling silent. Naruto kept quiet as well, not wishing to elaborate to Jiraiya who Indra's transmigrant was. Jiraiya frowned before carrying on. All right then, we shall start as there's no time to waste. Gamamaru spoke once more. One last thing, Shima-chan and Fukasaku-kun. Give Naruto the Rakuto Sennin's Chizigen, blood oath. The 2 great sage toads hesitated, before deciding to comply with the ultimate authority's order. They brought Naruto to the sacred oil fountain, where a waterfall of oil gushed into a pool surrounded by hundreds of toad and human stone statues. Jiraiya explained, Every one of these statues was once a living thing. They died learning senjutsu as they were unable to control the influx of natural energy, which lead to petrification. Fukasaku and Shima weaved hand seals, activating a jutsu which caused the waterfall to split. This revealed a cave behind it lit by torches. The 4 entered the cave, the centerpiece of which was a sword laid on a stone. This, Fukasaku said, is the Chizigen, a relic from the Sage of 6 Paths, forged by him as a gift for Myobokuzan. He said to Gamamaru-sama that one day, a person born of his blood would be worthy to wield her and save the world. Naruto couldn't help but feel a sense of attraction to the holy blade. Despite the darkness of the cave, she emitted a glow of her own. This sword is imbued with the souls of every toad or human that has died trying to learn senjutsu, yes, those outside the cave. Before beginning their training, they swore a blood oath to give their souls to the Chizigan upon their death, so that at least their deaths would be meaningful, hence the name Blood Oath. Shima continued. There are 4 conditions guarding the usage of the Chizigan. Firstly, she can only be wielded by one of noble blood, that is, a descendant of Otsutsuki Hagoromo. Secondly, the blade must not be exposed to the light of day. The reason being she is meant to be used when the world plunges into darkness from the Mugen Tsukuyami, infinite Tsukuyami. Thirdly, the Chizigan cannot be drawn in the presence and knowledge of girls, who by definition are human females below the age of 18. So technically, if they are unconscious, then it doesn't count. Lastly, once the blade is drawn, she will not return to her sheath until she tastes blood, Fukasaku explained. Shima warned, to break any of these conditions is to break the blood oath sworn by all souls within the blade, causing the Chizigan to dissolve and consume her user, which is pretty bad since she and her master will be instrumental in the fight against Otsutsuki Kagaya, the mother of the Rikudo Sannin. Naruto queried, what is the Mugen Tsukuyami? And why will we fight the Rikudo Sennin's mother? Jiraiya sighed and elaborated. It has been prophesied that the return of Kagaya will be the literal end of the world. Legend has it that Kagaya was influenced by the Shinju, the first being to possess chakra in its fruits. She consumed its fruits and single-handedly brought an end to all wars on Earth through the Mugen Tsukuyami, a powerful genjutsu which ensnared every single human being and put them into a dreamlike state made of their hopes and ambitions. Eventually, they turned into lifeless, white creatures with green hair known as white zetsus which obeyed the caster's will. To keep humanity alive, she released some of them from the genjutsu and wiped their memories. However, she soon became power-hungry and consumed more and more of these chakra fruits which corrupted her greatly. She bore twin sons, Hagoromo and Himura, the latter of which gave rise to the Hyuga clan. It soon became clear that it was necessary to stop her. The twins joined forces and fought against their mother, who had merged with the Shinju to form the Jubi. Together, they sealed their mother with Rikudo, Chibaku Tensei, 6 Paths, Planetary Devastation, a powerful fuinjutsu which encased her within what is known today as the moon. The Sage of 6 Paths then extracted the chakra of the Jubi and split it into today's 9-tailed beasts. The empty husk known as the Geto Mazo was sent into another dimension, only accessible to users of the Rinnegan. However, prophecy dictates that Kagaya will return one day to cast the infinite Tsukuyami again, and the only people who can stop her are the aforementioned children of the prophecy. Do you see now why the Chizigan is important? Naruto nodded. But all these conditions and the consequences seem pretty serious, and it doesn't seem worth the risk to draw the blade. There must be a huge advantage to make it worth drawing, right? Fukasaku nodded. You're correct. Firstly, the Chizigan is the sharpest sword in the human realm, fashioned out of the Kekiai Mora of the Rikudo Sannin. She is said to be so sharp that a single strand of hair falling onto her edge would be cleft in twain. Secondly, she acts as a storage of chakra and is attuned to the user's chakra, which flows into her naturally. Lastly, any wound made by the Chizigan will siphon chakra from the victim into her blade. The wound will not close either, and will continue to bleed even if you try to use your yang power on it. You'll come to realize that any attack augmented with the power of the 6 paths cannot be healed by your yang power alone. Asura spoke. He's right. There are some things that my yang power cannot heal. However, said Shima suddenly, that is why the Chizigan comes with the Chizigan stone, which is at the tip of the sheath. The Chizigan stone has 2 properties. It acts as a whetstone, allowing the sword to be sharpened again and again, and touching it to any wound made by the blade will close it and stop the damage. You can then use your yang power to fully heal someone. Naruto stepped forward, right before the sword. Can I test it out now? Shima nodded. The blonde reached for the blade, his fist closing around the ornate hilt. As he did so, the Chizigan stone glowed and sent surges of power through the Uzumaki. Fukasaku announced solemnly, the blade has found a master. In his hand, the blade felt physically light but spiritually heavy, as he was aware of the many fallen spirits who have given their lives to empower the Chizigan. He looked around, and realized she was placed in a cave lit only by torches so as to allow her to be drawn within. His left hand closed around the sheath. With a firm pull, Naruto freed the sword from her scabbard. A loud ringing sound ensued and a huge wave of chakra radiated out, shaking the earth and causing the wind to roar wildly. The blonde Uzumaki admired the double-edged blade, a true work of art. It was pitch black like his Gododama except for the Jutsushiki running along her central ridge, which glowed faintly in every shade of orange from amber to cadmium. It then occurred to him that he was the first to draw the sword after she had been gifted to Mayobokuzan, meaning he was the first to see how she looked. Time to see if the saying about her sharpness is true. He brought the Chizigen a millimeter away from his finger. The other three watched with bated breath as Naruto closed the gap. The moment his finger came in contact with the blade, the razor edge created an incision with supernatural sharpness, tearing through his skin easily and rupturing numerous capillaries. Intense pain spiked through his body like never before, as if he had been thrown into a pool of boiling acid. Naruto stifled a scream. Fortunately, he had a high threshold for pain, or he might have cried out in agony in front of the sages present. Blood oozed out of the burst vessels, and as expected, steam rose from the wound as cells regenerated due to his rapid healing factor. However, the tear of the wound widened insidiously, spreading faster than the cells could regenerate. "So it's true," Jiraiya remarked as he observed the refusal of the wound to close. Naruto grabbed the sheath and tapped his wound with the stone at its tip. Instantly, it stopped bleeding, and within seconds, his healing factor restored his finger to its original state. Fukasaku was in awe. "That's the fastest healing factor I've seen. I can't wait to train you, Naruto-chan." Naruto sheathed the holy blade and bowed to the elders. "Thank you for this honor, Saninji-chan." He smiled. Fukasaku began the instruction on senjutsu. Sages are people who can manipulate natural energy, which is energy in the environment. Mixing natural energy with normal chakra gives rise to sage chakra, which is much more potent and powerful. Reaching a heightened state where the physical, mental, and natural energies in the body are in balance is termed as sage mode, where all of your reflexes are enhanced, as well as your strength, speed, and stamina. Your ability to wield natural energy as a weapon will serve you in combat, and being able to detect natural energy will greatly enhance your sensory skills by expanding your range by at least 1 kilometer. Too much natural energy in one's body will cause petrification, but Asura-san has already gifted you with the body of a sage as part of your inheritance, so that will not be a problem. Once you master how to balance the 3 energies perfectly, you will then be able to properly utilize the 6-path sage mode to its full potential. Shall we begin? 3 months later, local time, Naruto flowed through the Kawazu-Kumite, frog kata, smoothly, practicing its various stances and forms. Shima clapped in approval. "Wonderful, Naruto-chan. You've mastered the art quickly." "Thank you, Sanin-bachan, but I am far from mastering it," Naruto responded. Fukasaku chuckled. "Humble as always. Don't discredit yourself, though. You've truly reached the level of Jiraiya in the Kawazu-Kumite with unprecedented speed." The frog kata was a taijutsu style of the toads, but it was mostly effective only in sage mode, so Naruto had decided to incorporate it into Asura's style. As for his ninjutsu, he had learnt many from Jiraiya and the toads of Mayobokuzan, including many elemental, sage, and collaboration techniques. He had to admit he had never felt so alive. Though it might sound cliché, he felt one with nature, literally. The natural energy had some kind of rejuvenating property which energized him again and again, tiding him through his grueling training for the past 3 months. Naruto chuckled as he prepared to bid farewell to Mayobokuzan. After a month of harsh training and food definitely not meant for humans, he was eager to go home, eat some ramen, and see his friends. He frowned as an image of Sayuri appeared in his head. What was wrong with him? He shook the thought out of his head. Mindscape, Kurama sighed internally. "Oh boy!" Asura laughed and commented, "Kurama-kun, this may be fate. It may be predestined, that they will unite to fight against my grandmother." The Titanic fox grumbled. "That doesn't mean I have to like it. Come on, at least Sayuri is not as bad as Madara." The Kyuubi shook his head. "I know she loves him, but I have a really bad feeling. Asura sighed and announced worriedly, "So do I." Reality. The blonde decided that he needed new clothes. Thankfully, he had not worn the daimyo's present but had gotten the Sandame's birthday gift from years back worn and torn. Due to the sentimental value it had, he decided to send it to a tailor for repair, in a henge of course, while he wore what the fire daimyo had bestowed upon him for his upcoming battle. Within his cloak, a new sword was concealed along with the elucidator. Naruto smiled brightly as he left his house on the morning of the exams, ready to thrash his Hyuga opponent like he promised. With Sayuri, the past 3 weeks with Kakashi had been spent improving her taijutsu and honing her Mangekyou's ocular prowess, as Kakashi had one in his possession and could perform Kamui. That coupled with her Rinnegan, she felt ready to face Tsunade's Jinchuriki. She had gained confidence in using her new abilities, and they would act as aces up her sleeves should she require them. Presently, she sat up in bed and pushed back her blankets. Her thoughts immediately fleeted to a certain blonde whom she had not seen for 3 weeks. She shook her head, sighing. How would she bear 3 years if she couldn't even bear 3 weeks? The Uchiha got out of bed, distracting herself with the routine of dressing up. It was a warm Saturday morning on the 12th of July, and she definitely could not afford to be late for the finals. She had already seen the dignitaries arriving in the village yesterday evening, staying for the night as the finals were early in the morning. It was 8, an hour to the finals. At the end of the day, she might or might not be a Chunin, and at this point, she did not know which was better. The looming threat of the CRA was very real, and Naruto had yet to find a loophole. It looked like she would have to enact her plan. Besides, she still had a brother to kill. Sayuri opened a drawer with her right hand and deftly picked up a beautiful red and black kumihimo cord. Grabbing her hair with her left hand, she deftly lashed the cord around and over it before tying an elaborate knot, forming a ponytail. The Uchiha strode towards the door and picked up her chikudo from its mount in the bedroom, trailing it by her side. After leaving the house, she had a light breakfast before heading off to the stadium. Contrary to the light-hearted mood Naruto and Sayuri possessed at this moment, the leader of Tsunade was on the other side of Konoha, chuckling to himself for a different reason altogether. Beneath his Kage hat was a veil which hid a sinister smile. Sarutobi-sensei, I hope you like what I've prepared for you. Kanehagakure would not know what hit them. Chapter 12, Chunin Exam Finals. Previously, Kanehagakure would not know what hit them. Konoha Stadium. Many villagers, civilians, and shinobi alike were gathered at the stands to spectate the exciting final stage of the Chunin exams. The remaining 8 competitors stood at their assigned positions in the viewing platform, mentally preparing themselves for their upcoming battles. Above the spectator stands was a box for the Kages and the daimyos to view the match from a higher vantage point. Today's matches will be interesting, don't you think, Hokage Dano? The leader of Konoha nodded. Indeed, I heard that the 3 Suna participants are your children. Let's see how well they do. The Kazekage gave a low laugh. Down below where the competitors were standing, Naruto was catching up with Sayuri about their training progress. The Uchiha was impressed by his sage techniques, while the blonde couldn't help but admire her dojutsu, which had clearly advanced much in the past 3 weeks with the help of Kakashi. The crowd quietened when the proctor, another Tokubetsu Jonin, started speaking. Good morning, Hokage-sama, Kazekage-sama, Daimyo-sama, distinguished guests, contestants, and fellow villagers. I am Shiranui Genma, the proctor of the Chunin exam finals. Due to certain issues, the original proctor, Gecko Hayate, was unable to make it today. I will be refereeing the 7 matches today. Genma turned to the 8 participants. The rules are quite simple. When I say start, Naruto tuned him out at this point as Genma was repeating what Hayate had said before. Whether you win or lose, you may or may not be promoted. It all depends on your performance during the match. Any questions? The Tokubetsu Jonin looked around at the contestants as he chewed on his senbon. None? Then without further ado, let us begin with the first match as scheduled. Uzumaki Naruto of Kanehagakure versus Hyuga Niji of Kanehagure. Since the 2 shinobi knew that they would be fighting, they were already down in the arena, a huge circular field of grass surrounded by high concrete walls. Genma eyed the 2 carefully. Niji was sizing up his opponent, who did not seem too different from before except that he appeared to be slightly more built. Naruto watched the Hyuga's movements just as closely. The Uzumaki knew that he was up against a taijutsu expert. Using ninjutsu would certainly cement the match result. But where was the fun in that? He had promised to beat the Hyuga, and what could be better than doing so in his own forte? Naruto wasn't just aiming to win this match. He was aiming to crush the Hyuga and wake him up from his arrogance and fatalist philosophy. In short, to pull the long stick out of his ass. Neji smirked and said, "I can't wait to see the discouraged look in your eyes when you realize you cannot win because fate has already declared me the winner." Naruto barely concealed a laugh. "I believe the proctor said his name was Shiranui Gunma, not fate. Now, will we fight or are we just going to stand around and talk all day?" To engage a Hyuga in taijutsu would be suicide unless he had the right countermeasures prepared. And he did. Naruto closed his eyes, where orange pigmentation began to form. Neji narrowed his opalescent eyes at this onset. He closed his eyes as well, the veins surrounding them beginning to bulge. Stands. Kakashi took notice of the orange markings around Naruto's eyes and pulled up his headband to take a closer look. His eyes widened. Couldn't be. Naruto had mastered Senjutsu? Sayuri was excited to see the extent of his new power. What was Sage Mode like? Arena. Genma knew from a single look that this fight would be intense. He prepared to jump back as he announced, "Now then, the first match." Hajime. White eyes snapped open to meet the fierce gaze of yellow, toad-like irides. Both slipped into their respective taijutsu-style stance. Naruto raised his left hand, beckoning and taunting the Hyuga in a come-hither gesture. Koi. Neji took off towards Naruto and started with a right hook which the blonde blocked. The Hyuga followed up with a series of shots which Naruto either stopped or dodged. Neji went for a low kick that Naruto avoided by jumping back. The Hyuga then made use of the momentum by launching his other foot at the blonde in a high kick. Naruto, however, jumped up and just narrowly slipped by Neji's foot. He landed after a backflip and lunged at the Hyuga while forming a hand seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Two shadow clones burst into existence next to him, joining the original in his sprint. They went ahead of him and tossed themselves at Neji. The taijutsu expert intercepted the attacks one by one, knocking the first aside while planting a foot into the second one which came flying. Both dispersed into smoke. The original waved his hand across the Hyuga's face before throwing a punch in a bid to execute a blind spot attack. But as he had already guessed, that was pointless against the Byakugan as it could see through his hand. Neji smirked and swerved his head to the side, evading the fist. Or so he thought. The next second, he was flat on the floor, his right cheek in intense agony from an invisible assault. Was his cheekbone broken? This shocked the whole crowd of spectators as Neji had clearly dodged the punch. The Hyuga glared at Naruto as he recovered quickly and got on his feet. "What was that?" the Hyuga tried to say, but it came out more garbled because the right side of his mouth felt like it was on fire. Naruto didn't answer and instead continued a barrage of attacks on Neji. This time, the Hyuga was way more wary, and when he could, he would put distance between himself and Naruto. As a Hyuga, this made him uncomfortable as he was used to fighting in close range. Suddenly, the Hyuga noticed the orange markings fading away from Naruto's face. With a confident smirk, he declared, "Looks like your power has worn off, Naruto. What will you do now?" This time, his words came out properly as the pain had subsided. "I'll still beat you." The Uzumaki formed the shadow clone hand seal. 5 clones appeared and rushed at the Hyuga. Neji was no longer wary of getting into close quarters with his opponent, and so he dished out his usual Jukinkata and obliterated the clones. At one point, all the clones jumped at Neji. A wall of chakra formed around the Hyuga like a shield before he spun around. Hakusho Kaiten, 8 trigrams palms revolving heaven. The shield of chakra rotated and expanded rapidly, throwing the clones off and dispelling them with great force. Stands. Hyuga Hayashi, head of the Hyuga clan, was impressed but had a frown on his face. The Kaiten was supposed to be a main house technique only passed down through orally. How did a branch house member like Neji learn it? He was truly a genius. Arena earlier. While Neji was distracted with the clones, the original weaved the hand signs for the summoning jutsu. Myobokuzan. 5 clones sat in a meditative position around the sacred oil fountain, amassing senjutsu chakra with the abundance of natural energy present in the area. One of them dispersed into smoke as it felt its summoner's call beckoning it through space-time. Arena. Naruto dispelled the shadow clone and felt natural energy return to his body. Neji had just thrown off the clones and was charging at Naruto with a kunai, noticing how his eyes were closed. To his great shock, the Uzumaki executed an open palm thrust with his eyes still closed, shattering the kunai into shards of metal. Neji scowled in annoyance when he noticed the orange pigmentation around Naruto's eyes, realizing that somehow, his power had returned to him. Naruto closed the distance between him and the Hyuga, executing a swift punch. Neji narrowly deflected it and pushed his hand away. The Uzumaki made use of the momentum and spun clockwise in a tornado kick. Neji's eyes widened as he realized what was about to happen and quickly brought up his hands to his side. Unfortunately, that did not do much to soften the impact of Naruto's kick. Upon contact, Naruto's senjutsu-enhanced foot propelled the Hyuga backwards, sending him rocketing straight into the arena wall 30 meters away. Take Neji's word for it. Tumbling across the floor before smashing into hard concrete was not fun at all. With a groan, he pulled himself out of the mini crater he had made in the wall. I have to end this quickly, the Hyuga thought as he sprinted towards Naruto. Once again, they engaged, and this time Neji was prepared. He weaved in and out of Naruto's range, and the moment he saw an opening, he went for it without hesitation. Jukenho Ichigekishin, gentle fist art, body blow, Neji exclaimed, as he delivered a two-handed strike with a blast of chakra. Naruto was momentarily stunned as he was hit by the powerful burst of chakra. He was launched 2 meters back from the impact, crashing onto the grass. Thankfully, his Sage mode had increased his threshold for pain more than before, so it was not that bad. Neji smirked as he entered a new stance. You are within range, and you cannot escape my 8 trigrams. Stance. Hayashi was taken aback. To think a member of the branch house had learnt this taijutsu move. Arena. As Naruto recovered, Neji took no chance and lunged at him. With great ferocity, the Hyuga struck the Uzumaki with double 2-fingered thrusts. Hack Nisho, 8 trigrams 2 palms. Yansho, 4 palms. Neji called as he struck once again, sending his chakra through Naruto's body with precision to shut down his tenketsu. Hasho, 8 palms. Jirokusho, 16 palms. Sanjunisho, 32 palms. The Hyuga shouted as he repeatedly slammed his fingers into Naruto with increasing speed. Hack Rokujion Sho, 8 trigrams 64 palms. Neji exclaimed as he sent the last 32 consecutive bursts of chakra into the Uzumaki's body with a strong step forward, shutting down 64 of his 361 tenketsu. Naruto flew back and landed on the floor, his chest in incredible pain. His breathing became shallow as the chakra flow in his body stopped. The blonde tried to get up, but found that his body was failing him. Neji declared with a smirk as he turned off his Byakugan. Why do you try so hard? I told you already, a failure will always be a failure. Look at your pathetic state, trying to worm yourself out of the destiny that has been set for you. Naruto's brows furrowed in anger. Weren't you the same by trying to kill Hinata? Isn't your destiny as a branch house member to serve the main house? Why are you killing your masters? Are you not going against your own fate? Neji, the Hyuga growled. You do not understand. I will never be free of the fate which binds me. He then took off his headband, revealing a curse seal. This is the Kago no Tori no Juin, caged bird seal. A Juinjutsu, curse seal, branded on the branch house of the Hyuga clan by the main house. Anytime a branch house member does anything to defy the main house, we are at their mercy, for a simple hand sign will destroy our brain cells and seal our Byakugan at death. It will never be erased, not until death consumes us. Many years ago during the Hyuga affair, Kumogakure, village hidden in the clouds, S-head ninja kidnapped Hinata-sama on her 3rd birthday. We managed to kill him and retrieve her. However, Kumo demanded Hayashi-sama's body as a compensation for the death of their head ninja. At this, Niji turned to the Hyuga clan head. Hayashi-sama's twin brother, Hyuga Hizashi, and my father, was sent in his place. He was killed by his own twin brother with the caged bird seal, said Niji bitterly. This act averted war, and Kumo did not get the Byakugan either. However, I lost a father. Do you see why now? The branch house will always die to protect the main house. There is no exception. Stands. Hayashi winced. So he was the reason his nephew was this way. Perhaps it was time to show him the letter Hizashi had left for him. Arena. Naruto frowned as he fought the soreness in his body. And yet, here you are today, having progressed so far into the Chunin exams and even defeated the Hyuga heiress, whose fate is supposed to be always being superior to you. Isn't it ironic? The thing is, hard work will always defeat a genius. Genius often results in arrogance and complacency, while hard work is the sure path to continuous self-improvement and victory over those with natural-born talent. Niji noticed Naruto slowly getting up and narrowed his eyes. Why do you still insist on resisting your fate? Can't you see it plainly? You'll never defeat me, as fate had already decided long ago that I would win this match. Because, said Naruto as he stood up fully, regaining his balance, you called me a failure. If that's what it takes, I'll defeat you and show you that fate is irrelevant to the final outcome. The Hyuga was taken aback. How was Naruto still standing after that attack? A person who fell under the 64 palms would usually be unable to get up for at least a month, and that was provided the assailant had missed vital organs that would have caused death otherwise. Naruto brought his hands together in the ram hand seal, eliciting a smirk from Niji. Go ahead and try. You'll see that it's pointless. All of a sudden, the air in the arena became thicker and denser. It became much harder to breathe. This was surely the precursor to something bad. Without warning, orange chakra flooded throughout Naruto's system, forcefully reopening his closed tenketsu. The sheer power of the release of chakra caused the ground beneath the Uzumaki to shake and crumble. Fierce winds broke out and tore the blades of grass nearby asunder, the remnants of which circled the blonde in a storm of plant parts. The few trees in the arena had cracks forming along their barks from the pressure of the potent chakra presence. Adorned on Niji's face was a look of pure horror as he reactivated his Byakugan. It should have been impossible to force open the tenketsu after it had been closed without another Hyuga's intervention. Was that orange thing even chakra? The winds surged through the stands relentlessly, ruffling the spectators' hairstyles and blowing loose items away. Sayuri smiled as her hair fluttered, recalling the time when Naruto first tested for his chakra nature affinity. So this was the chakra of Asura that Indra had spoken about. Kagebox. Such power. This must be the Kyuubi's chakra, thought the disguised snake Sannin. Wait. No. There isn't a demonic feel to it all. This is the fabled chakra of the Uzumaki clan. The Hokage was impressed. Is this the chakra of Otsutsuki Asura? It is overpowering, reminiscent of Hashirama-sama. Hiruzen thought. Arena. Just as suddenly as it came, the winds died down. The orange chakra receded back into his body, and to any ordinary bystander it would have appeared as if it had disappeared completely. The Hyuga, however, knew better. His Byakugan clearly saw the orange chakra concentrated within his body, almost bursting but not quite so. Naruto's eyes were different from before. A single slit ran across the horizontal bar in his irides. Now, the Uzumaki exuded an aura of confidence and self-assuredness. That was a look Niji recognized and did not wish to see on his opponent at this time. On the surface, he appeared calm and focused. But make no mistake, within, like his namesake, was a maelstrom of energy waiting to be released. Ikuzo, Naruto uttered. Just like that, he disappeared in a flash of speed. Niji was stunned. One did not simply just disappear like that. The Uzumaki appeared behind the Hyuga in mid-air, several projectiles in hand. In rapid succession, he fired them off at Niji. The taijutsu expert quickly dug his feet into the floor and initiated a rotation. Kaiten. They bounced off harmlessly the chakra shield, after which Niji grabbed one of them out of the air. Take this, he exclaimed, launching them with high speed at the airborne Uzumaki. Shock and fear shook the Hyuga as Naruto evaded the attacks with ridiculous swiftness once again. leaving the kunais and shurikens to penetrate the arena walls. Impossible! The Hyuga thought as the blonde rocketed at him with blinding speeds, ramming a fist full of chakra into his face. The pain told him it was possible. It plowed into his face without remorse, catapulting him into another section of the arena wall with extreme prejudice. This time, the front part of the wall exploded from the impact. The concrete slowed down the Hyuga's momentum by a lot, but his inertia continued forcing him down the path through the wall. Just as he was about to break through the other side of the wall, Niji came to a stop. Many bones were broken. Right now, he was in so much pain he could not even begin to describe it. His face probably needed restructuring after this. Naruto strode towards the Hyuga and pulled his body out of the wreckage formed by the bottom of the wall. He passed his hands over Niji's face, sending Yotan chakra into his body. The Uzumaki mended most of the broken bones, rectifying the immediate damage. Naruto sighed as he healed the Hyuga. That pompous ass deserved every single broken bone and torn ligament. As he did so, the Uzumaki stared into Niji's Byakugan, which saw so much and yet so little. A failure will always be a failure, Naruto repeated mockingly, with a purposefully poor imitation of Niji's voice. Do you see the truth now, Niji? You can always resist fate. If you don't like your circumstances, there is always something you can do to change it. Your fate is what you want it to be. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Then he stood up. Gunma raised his hand in Naruto's direction. Shosha, Uzumaki Naruto. Surprisingly, the crowd cheered loudly for him. They must have been sick of Niji's fate bullshit as well. Kagebox. So, all in favor of Uzumaki Naruto's promotion to Chunin? The Hokage prompted. The Kazekage and the two daimyos raised their hands, as did Konoha's leader himself. All right, said the Hokage as he input the result into the system. All in favor of Hyuga Niji's promotion to Chunin? Only the Wind Daimyo raised his hand. Despite Niji's natural prowess in taijutsu as a Hyuga, his attitude was troublesome for a Chunin undertaking missions and for teamwork as well. Stands. Naruto returned to Sayuri's side. The Uchiha gave him a look of approval. Good job. Your senjutsu was very interesting, to say the least, Sayuri remarked as she looked pointedly at the damaged concrete walls. The Uzumaki blushed in embarrassment. Oops, I tried to hold back as much as I could. I still had a lot of ninjutsu in my arsenal, but I didn't want the whole world to know the full extent of my power, and also, I wanted to beat him with taijutsu only. Sayuri nodded in understanding. Down below, the proctor announced, the second match. Aburame Shino versus Sabaku no Kankuro. The Tsunade, who was standing nearby in the stands, yelled down, I forfeit. The crowd jeered, but Kankuro knew he needed to conserve his energy for what was to come. Gunma blinked, before continuing, the winner by forfeit is Aburame Shino. Kagebox. Hokage Dano, I suppose none are getting promoted? The Kazekage questioned. The aged Hokage replied, Indeed, I'm surprised your son didn't participate though. I was looking forward to witnessing the craft of a Kugetsutsukai from Sungakure. Given the fame and origin of the art, Hiruzen had a tone of suspicion in his voice. The Kazekage responded with, My son was always a shy one. Now, the Hokage was sure the man next to him was Orochimaru. The murder of Gekko Hayate had raised his suspicions, and what the Kazekage had said was clearly a lie. From what Hiruzen had seen in the preliminaries, Kankuro was clearly not shy about using his power to take down his opponent in a brutal and aggressive fashion. He raised his guard as his gaze returned to the match. Arena. The third match. Nara Shikamaru of Konohagakure versus Sabaku no Temari of Tsunade. Gunma called. Shikamaru held back curses. He was hoping the second match would give him more time to relax, but knew it just had to end before it even started. He had half a mind to follow Kankuro but knew that his mum would not hesitate to slay him if he forfeited without even trying. Mendokus. The Nara groaned as he came face to face with the blonde from Suna. He already thought ahead. She was clearly a long-range fighter with that fan of hers. He was a short-range fighter and wouldn't stand a chance against her if there was distance between them. He would have to rely on the pre-existing shadows on the floor from Naruto's battle. Time was also not on his side as the longer the match dragged on, the closer it became to noon when the shadows were a lot shorter. Hopefully, his new techniques would come in useful. Hajime! Immediately, Shikamaru's hands flew into the rat hand seal, initiating the Nara clan's famous technique, Kagemain no Jutsu. His shadow turned jet black and shot towards the Suna Kunoichi, who leapt back and distanced herself. After a good 15 meters, the shadow stopped chasing her and came to a stop. Temari brought her fan down and carved a line across the floor, demarcating the line between the safe and dangerous zone. Looks like this is the limit to your technique. As long as I don't cross this line, you'll never catch me, she declared with a confident smirk. Kagebox. My daughter is smart after all, being able to deduce the mechanics of the Nara clan's hidden ninjutsu in such a short time, commented the Kazekage. The Hokage smiled. We'll have to see. After all, the other famous thing Naras have is their strategical intelligence. For all we know, this could be part of the Nara's ploy. Arena. Shikamaru groaned as Temari opened her giant metal fan with a flick of her wrist. Grabbing the bottom with both hands, she swung it at the Nara with great force. Futon. Kazekiri no Jutsu. Wind style. Wind blade jutsu. A huge gust of wind picked up and rushed towards Shikamaru, forcing him to release the shadow possession and take cover behind trees in the arena. The wind tore up everything in its path, decimating trees into logs and splinters of timber. This soon became a game of cat and mouse. Whenever Temari fired off a blast of Futon chakra, Shikamaru would take cover in a new tree. This happened until every single tree in the vicinity was brought down, littering the whole floor with wood. There's nowhere to hide now, Nara. I got you, Temari said. Suddenly, Shikamaru began to laugh. No, I got you. From behind his back, he tossed a flash bomb up. It exploded and released bright light upon the arena, momentarily blinding the Tsunade and darkening every shadow in the area formed by all the destroyed wood. In that instant, Shikamaru's hands danced from the rat to the bird hand seal. Ninpo, Kage Nui no Jutsu. To Temari's shock, black tendrils materialized from thin air and shot towards her, binding her in an intricate network of shadow chains. Even after the light died down, they still kept her trapped. Satisfied, Shikamaru waved his hand to one side. A single tendril wrapped around Temari's fan and discarded it further away from her such that it was out of reach. The tendrils from the shadow stitching technique reverted to that of the standard shadow possession, paralyzing the blonde. Shikamaru relaxed as he contemplated what to do. He could make her forfeit like what he did to Kin in the preliminaries, but if he did so, he would have to become a Chunin, and being a Chunin was a drag. The responsibilities that came with being one was way too troublesome for his liking, and he could technically tell his mom that he tried to fight so she wouldn't kill him. He made up his mind and looked up at the Temari, who had a look of fear and anticipation for what he was about to do, since he could now make her do literally anything. Nara Shikamaru, forfeit this match, declared the Nara. Nara Shikamaru, forfeit this match. The Suna Kunoichi found herself repeating, much to her surprise. Without even bothering to wait for the announcement, Shikamaru released his Kagemain and walked away. The proctor was amused. There was really no end to Nara's laziness. Winner by forfeit. Sabaku no Temari. The crowd was in uproar over the wasted victory. Clearly, many had bet on the Nara to win. A small section of the crowd was bursting in peals of laughter. They were the people who had guessed such an outcome from the scion of the Nara clan. Kagebox. The Hokage chuckled before regaining his regal demeanor. Turns out the Nara was a genius after all. All in favor of Nara Shikamaru's promotion to Chunin. All four dignitaries present raised their hands. Despite his laziness, it was clear he thought very far ahead during the match. The first Kagemain was to induce Temari into thinking that it could not go any further, and that she had it all figured out when she didn't. Next, by keeping his distance, he easily tricked her into using her long-range wind techniques and forced her to destroy all the trees in the arena, which seemingly removed his cover but actually provided him the necessary shadows to extend his technique. That, coupled with the flash bomb which served to blind her as well, allowed him to bind her with the Kagenui and end the match. All in favor of Sabaku no Temari's promotion to Chunin? The Hokage called. The two Kages and the fire daimyo raised their hands. The Suna Kunoichi, though she had been outwitted by the Nara, was a rather good analyst and futon user in her own right. All right, the Hokage affirmed as he approved both their promotions. Their attention returned to the fourth and most highly anticipated match. Arena. Genma cleared his throat to get the spectators' attention. They fell silent once again. The fourth match, Uchiha Sayuri versus Sabaku no Gaara. The Jinchuriki smiled demonically as he made his way down to the floor. In contrast, Sayuri had an air of indifference. Their eyes met in what was an intense moment. Gaara's teal eyes held only bloodlust. He gave a low laugh. "I'll enjoy spilling your noble blood, Uchiha." Sayuri was not affected at all, unlike the Tokubetsu Jonin proctoring the match who was feeling uneasy. "Hajime!" Genma yelled and jumped away. Without hesitation, Sayuri took off towards the redhead at her usual speed. Gaara waved his hands in a frenzy, causing the sand to burst out of his gourd and fly at the Uchiha. She weaved in and out of the sand projectiles, skillfully evading them. Sayuri then noticed a clump of sand floating above him and braced for an attack. Suna Shigure, sand drizzle. Sand clotted into lumps and shot off at high speeds towards the Uchiha. She leapt away, escaping the explosion where she was previously. Flipping, she repeatedly dodged the numerous bullets which fell like rain. At one point, they began to overwhelm her. She formed the Tiger Hand seal. Gokakyu no Jutsu. Fire erupted from her lungs and spewed out defensively against the falling sand, superheating it to glass. The glass dome shattered as Sayuri burst out of it and sprinted towards Gaara. She yanked her chikudo out of its scabbard and swiped it at Gaara. As expected, the sand at his feet rose to his defense and trapped the sword. Her grip tightened while she channeled Raitun chakra through the chikudo, causing it to crackle with electricity, which loosened the sand's hold. She jumped onto the sand wall and in a single fluid movement, pulled out the kusanagi while backflipping away. She brought her free hand to her mouth after forming some one-handed hand seals. Katan, Hozenka no Jutsu. She spat several fire bullets at Gaara, who retaliated with sand to snuff out the airborne flames. While his attention was still at the sky, the Uchiha dropped to the floor and charged at him. With far greater speed than before, Sayuri disappeared, akin to Naruto earlier. Gaara could only gasp in shock and had a mere 2 seconds to brace for the impact. All the crowd heard was a loud boom before Gaara was thrown with great force, crashing into the wall. The Jinchuriki coughed and found a warm, crimson liquid exit his mouth. "What is this, Ka-san? It's my blood, Kasan. My blood." Gaara howled dementedly. His siblings were shell-shocked. No one had ever drawn their brother's blood. Ever. They could only imagine his mental state now. He rose slowly, glaring at Sayuri, who returned the stare coldly. He slammed his hands together. The sand rumbled and surged towards the Uchiha quickly. Stabbing Kusanagi into the soil, she intoned, "Chidori Nagashi." Chidori current. Raitun chakra exploded out from the sword and radiated outwards, pushing back the sand with its elemental advantage. "Uchiha, where are your famous red eyes? Show them to me." Gaara hollered, directing more sand at her. Sabaku Kyu. The minerals in the floor beneath her was crushed into fine sand, which burst out and wrapped around her. There was nowhere to run as the whole arena had been transformed into a giant sandbox. Sand surrounded her and clutched her within its grip. The redhead Jinchuriki cackled evilly, his voice noticeably calming down as he closed his fist. "Sabaku Soso, sand burial." The sand closed in on her, imploding. "Sayuri!" Naruto screamed from the stands as he witnessed the death of his teammate. A huge cloud of sand was thrown up from the implosion of the sand coffin, obscuring viewers from the scene. Suddenly, a purplish aura appeared in the haze. When the smoke cleared, it was revealed to be a huge humanoid chakra construct protecting the last Uchiha, who looked relatively unscathed. Her right eye was now black with a red atom model, the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, while her left was the Eye of the Six Paths. Her right eye converted back to the vermilion shade of the Three-Tomo Sharingan, and the Susanoo disappeared as Sayuri formed 3 hand seals. Focusing, her left hand became covered with a copious amount of lightning chakra, which rumbled with the sound of 1,000 birds. "Chidori," Sayuri whispered under her breath. Without warning, she charged at the Tsunade, who immediately began collecting all the sand in his vicinity to form a protective sphere around him. The A-rank Raitun Jutsu easily penetrated Gaara's ultimate defense, but came to a stop just as it breached the wall as Sayuri's arm was unable to reach any further through the sand. Gaara had made the wall about 75 centimeters thick. Her eyes twitched as she noticed an increase in the chakra of the sand nearest to her. Quickly, she withdrew her arm and flipped away, just in time to avoid getting impaled by long, sharp spikes of sand. They receded into the ball, inside which Gaara was chanting the hand seal sequence for a technique. Naruto's eyes widened as he felt a rising sense of dread from a malevolent source of chakra. He knew this feeling. Gaara was about to release Shikaku. Spontaneously, the sphere of sand crumbled and revealed a titanic tanuki the size of an apartment block, its skin the color of sand and blue markings running randomly along its body. Simultaneously, a war horn in the distance sounded. A powerful genjutsu of illusionary feathers fell on the spectators, causing them to enter a deep sleep. Outside the walls of Konoha, troops from Tsunade and Otoge breached the defenses and entered the village. The invasion had begun.